Hey, welcome back everyone to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 221, Black Tech Talk. Please hit the like button as you come in. Share the video if possible. Document and description beneath the video for you to follow along with. All right, so today we're going to talk about top 5 high-paying tech jobs for Black women, and then we'll go into other open mic, open chat discussion so that we can further along this whole entire topic. I'll wait for you guys to come in here. Alvino Allen, what's going on? How are you doing? I see people are starting to come in, so I'll definitely give them another 90 seconds to come in before I just actually get started. And maybe I'll just start with the intro as well as to why we're even doing this. So CM in the chat says, I'm curious why the distinction between black men and black women, because we always focus on black men in these hangouts. We're very male centric. So somebody had asked me before about what about putting some stuff out there for sisters, and I said, okay, we can do something like that. We can work something out like that. Uh, Most of our hangouts, 99% of them, even the Black Tech Talks, are really focused around black men. So if if we're being honest with ourselves, it's obvious where our leanings are. So what's interesting is that the I scheduled this hangout last week, and before the hangout even got started, it had already got almost a dozen thumbs down. You know, people did not like the hangout, and the hangout hadn't even started yet. It was already scheduled. So it goes to show you what people are thinking in their heads without even listening to this. They try to make it seem as if black women aren't a part of the black community. It's hilarious. Like, where did you think they were going to go? So that's why we're doing this. Yeah, you should wait to hear it, BM. You should definitely wait to hear it. Yeah, absolutely, Alvino Allen. A lot of built-up resentment out there, and it's I have an idea of who might be thumbing it down, but I won't put their names out here. Uh, there's a certain segment in the black sector of social media that dislikes anything female, so makes you question their legitimacy here as well. All right, let me get started. All right, so why the reason why we decided to host this hangout was because um, women wanted to know what's out there for them, and typically 99% of the time we always focus on black men. So why not focus on black women once this time around to try to give them some tech talk tips and advice on what's going on. So what is the fourth industrial revolution? Basically, in a nutshell, the fourth industrial revolution is a way of describing the blurring lines of boundaries between physical, digital, and biological worlds. So the combination of physical infrastructure, civil infrastructure, paired on with emerging tech, blockchain, 5G, artificial intelligence, machine learning, automation, uh, cloud computing, autonomous vehicles, IoT, Internet of Things, Wi-Fi, right? Smartphones, tablets, smart watches, smart TVs, um, converged devices, your refrigerators, your stoves, and things of that nature. All of those things play a role in the fourth industrial revolution, and that's where the market is right now. This it's at the baby steps, the infant steps of or the infancy of the market is happening right now, and it's going to keep going for the next maybe 80 to 100 years. So that's the fourth industrial revolution in a nutshell. So who will be affected by the transformation is the second item on the docket. Um, in this particular segment, black people will be affected by this, especially black women, because black women only make up 2% of their um, 2% of their college enrollment. Post-secondary education focuses on STEM, hard STEM. So you're talking about your computer sciences, computer engineering, electrical engineering, electronic engineering, uh, things of that nature. So that's why you have to have that discussion about who's being affected by the transformation. If you don't actually be a part of the transformation, then you're going to get left behind. So that's why item number two is on the docket: who will be affected by this transformation. All right, so let me go to number three. Let me share my screen. Share my screen. All right, this one is from the World Economic Forum, a survival guide for the fourth industrial revolution. For the for those of us fortunate enough to come together at Davos this year, the fourth industrial revolution promises gains in scientific knowledge, human health, economic growth, and more. But for most people around the world, the prospect of future is in which robots and computers can perform many human jobs is a source of profound personal concern. As president of the Institute with Technology in its name and the betterment of humankind in its mission, I take these concerns seriously. Every past technology wave ultimately produced more jobs than it destroyed and delivered important gains. For higher living standards and life expectancy to productivity and economic growth. Yet many fear that this time the change may be so great, so fast, and so vast, and its impact so uneven and disruptive that it may threaten not only individual livelihoods but the stability of society itself. So this is what I'm talking about. Why this discussion needs to happen, especially for a black woman. If you are not in these industries, you could very well be find this the industry will disrupt your livelihood. This outcome is not inevitable. The future is in our hands. Indeed, deliberate, coordinated action is exactly what smoothed the way for such transitions in the past. If we want the advance of technology to benefit everyone, however, we need to take action right away. We must proactively and, and thoughtfully reinvent the future of work. Simply understanding the problem is a challenge. Experts still disagree on exactly which groups and regions are losing jobs primarily to automation, how quickly such impacts will spread, and what interventions might help. To build sound long term policy on something that's important, we cannot rely on anecdotes. Government, foundation, and corporate leaders need to invest in better data today. So that's kind of again puts emphasis behind why this hangout was even needed, right? Just simply using anecdotes is not enough. You can't just say there are no differences in tech-based businesses or careers on male or female. That's contradicting to what the article even from the World Economic Forum is even discussing. So I would appreciate when people come to these hangouts, don't just come with witty comments in the chat. Make sure you provide facts. I'm providing facts straight from the World Economic Forum. So this is just a list of probability of a job becoming automated. Loan officers, 98%. Receptions and information clerks, 96%. Paralegals and legal assistants, 94%. Retail salespersons, 92%. Taxi drivers and chauffeurs, 89%. Security guards, cooks, fast food, 81%. Bartenders, 77%. That's interesting. Computer programmers, 48%. That's less than half. Personal financial advisors, 58%. That's interesting. Musicians and singers, 7%. Lawyers, 4%. Physicians and surgeons, elementary school teachers. So these are least likely at the bottom to be replaced. So if you're in these areas at the further bottom of the scale, then you're not really going to be as affected. In the meantime, we must act on what we do know and make progress wherever we can. For instance, CEOs across many sectors describe one painful current quandary. They have said to me, in effect, I have to lay off hundreds of people because their jobs have disappeared and I do not need their skills. And I have hundreds of jobs openings I can't fill because I can't find people with the right training and skills. This mismatch is bad for everyone. Lives are derailed, families and communities damaged, business opportunities lost. So families and communities damaged. This is exactly why we have these discussions on this hangout. For people with technology itself offers one path to a solution. In fields from robotics and cybersecurity to supply chain management, many universities, including MIT, are pioneering online programs such as MicroMasters that provide top quality industry relevant skills and credentials in a form recognized by leading employers and at a fraction of the price to a traditional higher education. For people with industry expertise who need to become proficient in digital or problem solving skills, including teachers seeking to prepare their students for the future and to the future, an answer could be continuous uptraining, a system that allows for every employee to devote significant time every week, every month, or every year to acquiring fresh skills. If educational institutions, employers, and employees can imagine and refine a solution together, continuous uptraining could become a crucial tool to help individuals adapt to relentless change. Full circle, what's going on? Reinventing the future of work needs to be a whole society effort, and finding long term solutions will require ideas and initiatives from every quarter. Could educators from kindergarten to college make sure that every graduate in every field is computationally literate? Could institutions like MIT do better at helping students balance efficiency with other human values and choosing the problems they work on and how they design solutions? Could workers help develop automating technologies that make humans more effective and efficient instead of obsolete? Could corporations use some of the profits earned through automation to invest in developing these employees whose jobs have been erased by automation? Could unions help shape more relevant and accessible apprenticeship and uptraining programs? So This is part of the issue is that a lot of these roles that black women fulfill are roles that they can easily be replaced by writing lines of code. That's a serious problem. So that's why we're having this discussion. All right, let me get to the next article. Alvino Allen asks if there are any information or predictions on which these careers will last longest through fourth industrial revolution. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Careers are usually and skill sets and roles are usually good for about 5 to 7 years before they need to be um, replenished with up training. That's what the article is referring to. So your typical typical career is usually about 5 to 7 years. That's about it. All right, this one is from the World Economic Forum again. How to make the most out of machine learning by investing in people and technology. Machine learning is poised to pave the way for many exciting opportunities for businesses, but there are many hurdles to be crossed before getting to the finish line. Many organizations are still struggling with legacy systems and are slow to invest in more advanced technologies. But the more pressing issue at hand, one that has been an ongoing problem for the technology sector, is the short supply of qualified talent to match what is a fast moving and demanding industry. Unexplored territory. By design, machine learning is experimental and often unpredictable. A lot of exploration is required before organizations can even begin to make sense of the data in which machine learning algorithms will work best. While the unpredictable nature of machine learning is understandably daunting, many organizations have yet to fully grasp what is required to effectively deploy and manage it. Access to data is crucial to doing any form of machine learning, but virtually all businesses have policies that limit access to certain information and data. What they need to understand is that machine learning is ultimately fueled by all sorts of data. Therefore, providing consistent and ongoing access to that data while still adherently adhering to security and other data governance mandates is essential for the algorithms to be effective. Even if organizations have policies that allow easy access to real-time data, they need to consider how to bring many data sets together to ensure a steady flow of data. Machine learning models should not be trained on a fixed one-time set of data, as the efficiency of models will decay, but continuously training on the changing data so that the models can evolve with the changing behavior of the data in the systems. So what they're talking about here is um, this uh, this industry requires certain skills and as well as efficiency. And what happens with machine learning is that the device that the machine learning is going to go into is only as efficient as the data that is fed to it. You can't just give it one set of data and say, here's a map of the United States from 2013 and think that that map is going to be static all the way until 2019. That map has to be constantly updated with all the streets and all the avenues and all the on ramps and off ramps and highways and so on and so forth. All right, so this is the jobs landscape um, that's going to be affecting millions of people over the next couple of years. So 2019 is now, and 2022 is only a couple of years away. So here are the top 10 emerging: data analysts and scientists, AI and machine learning specialists, general and operations managers, software and application developers and analysts, sales and marketing professionals, big data specialists, digital transformation specialists, new technology specialists, organizational development specialists, information technology services. So that's the millions of roles that's coming online right now as we speak up until 2022. And the top 10 declining will be data entry clerks, accounting, bookkeeping, payroll clerks, administrative and executive secretaries, assembly and factory workers, client information, customer service workers, business services and administration managers, accountants and auditors, material recording and stock keeping clerks, general and operations managers, and postal service clerks. DE, what's going on? So 75 million of those jobs will be are slated to be gone by 2022. If you're a black woman and you are in these any of these markets, you will be affected, and you'll probably be the first one to go. So let me get to the next one. I'm on docket. All right. So next item on the docket is what are the top 5 tech jobs that are and will boom? So first one on the docket under the top 5 tech jobs is full stack developers. Um, there's an emerging trend called progressive web applications, um, mobile app applications, all coming through something called full stack development. So you have front end developers, you have mid tier developers, and then you have back end developers. Combine all three, and you have something called a full stack developer. And what these developers do is they work on web applications, websites, and then they work on the web application portion, and then they also work on the back end of tying in all the necessary services, including cloud computing, all into um, one role. So it's not uncommon that a full stack developer actually is working in a varied amount of operations, such as DevOps. Next one is data scientists. Just like the World Economic Forum discussed in the previous articles I read, data scientists are going to be in high demand. What do data scientists do? They basically curate data out of a lake, what we call a data lake, and actually make sense of the data. This is a very high growth, high paying role. BioScience. So BioScience can be working on CRISPR, working on gene editing. So that's another high growth market that you can actually tap into. Business intelligence, data warehousing. Business intelligence, basically, just like a data scientist, you're making sense of the um, business requirements and business needs and business operations, business engineering aspect, and leveraging all of the emerging tech around it to advance it for any operation. And then the last one is just information security. Information security with GDPR, which is General Data Protection Regulation of the European Union. Um, all of these things are going to matter, and why they need information security analysts to be looking at compliance and auditing of special information and data, um, for this emerging market, because a lot of data is being produced, and a lot of operations are going on through social media that require information security analysts to actually be involved in. Before somebody asks, what's the difference between information security and cybersecurity? Basically, information security is um, the managing and integrity of data, where cybersecurity is usually uh, immersed in fighting threats from into networking, basically. So the two are falling into the same category, but from a technical standpoint, they're not really the same. All right, so what are the educational resources? Let me pull up and share my screen. All right, this first one is from Coursera. This is an introduction to genetics and evolution, and this is coming from Duke University. And about this course, Introduction to Genetics Evolution is a college level class being offered simultaneously to new students at Duke University. The course gives interested people a very basic overview of some principles behind these very fundamental areas of biology. We often hear about new genome sequences, commercial kits that can tell you about ancestry from your DNA or disease predispositions, debates about the truth of, let me see if I can expand this out, evolution, why animals behave the way they do, and how people found genetic evidence for natural selection. This course provides the basic biology you need to understand all of these issues better, tries to clarify some misconceptions, and tries to prepare students for future more advanced coursework in biology. No prior coursework is assumed. So this is 100% online. Um, Takes about 40 hours to complete. You need about 5 hours a week. And it's, see if I can pull this up. It's 11 weeks, yeah, 11 weeks long. So definitely something you need to put on your radar. And it's from Duke University, so it's an accredited institution. So it's not like some fly-by-night school. All right, let me share my screen again. All right, so this one is from Coursera again. IBM Data Science Professional Certificate. So kickstart your career in data science and machine learning, master data science, learn Python and SQL, and analyze and visualize data, build machine learning models. Really huge market. You'd be crazy not to get into this. Let me just read this off real quick. Data science has been ranked as one of the hottest professions, and the demand for data practitioners is booming. The professional certificate from IBM is intended for anyone interested in developing skills and experience to pursue a career in data science and machine learning. The program consists of 9 courses, providing you with least with the latest job-ready skills and techniques, covering a wide array of data science topics, including open source tools and libraries, methodologies, Python, databases, SQL, and data visualization, data analysis, and machine learning. You will practice hands-on in the IBM cloud using real data science tools and real-world data sets. It is a myth that to become a data scientist you need a PhD. The professional certificate sorry, the professional certificate is suitable for anyone who has computer skills and a passion for self-learning. No prior computer science or programming knowledge is necessary. We start small, reinforce implied learning, and build up more complex topics. So there are one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine courses that need to be taken in order to pass this, and it's 100% online, beginner level, 2 months to complete, 12 hours a week. And you can join Coursera for free. So you really can't beat some of these prices on some of these levels of education. I wish this stuff had been around back in the early 2000s, so I could have got up on it. I'm surprised to see that we got one thumb down out of this stuff. Very interesting. All right, this next one is from edx.com. Front end web developer. Master the foundational programming languages for web development, HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript to gain skills in one of the fastest growing careers. The web is everywhere. Web development is intricate, creative, and interesting work that can lead to an exciting career in an in-demand, fastest-growing field. In this professional certificate program designed by the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, creator of the web standards, you will learn all of the necessary skills needed to build interactive and responsive user experiences on the web. This program will deepen your knowledge of the 3 foundational languages that power the web: HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript. You will be guided step by step on how to use all client-side web development techniques and to create and innovate on the web. Each course will also include interactive examples to help you practice and code the correct way. So the average salary for the front end web developers is $104,000. I mean, how can you beat that? So these are all self-paced. You got about 6 courses that need to be taken. Actually 5 courses that need to be taken, and it's the price is $499 right now. And it takes 4 to 6 weeks per course and 6 to 10 hours per week per course. 5 courses in the program and $499, and it's considered to fall under computer science. So this falls under STEM. Hmm. All right, I think I'm missing one of the links, so let me go back and make some corrections. All right, next one is from Coursera again. Data warehousing for business intelligence specialization. Um, shit, expand the screen out. All right, this specialization covers data architectural skills that are increasingly critical across a broad range of technology fields. You'll learn the basics of structured data modeling, gain practical SQL coding experience, and develop an in-depth understanding of data warehouse design and data manipulation. You will have the opportunity to work with large data sets in a data warehouse environment to create dashboards and visual analytics. You will use a MicroStrategy, a leading business intelligence tool, OLAP, online analytical processing, and visual insights capabilities to create dashboards and visual analytics. In the final capstone, you'll apply your skills to build a small, basic data warehouse populated with data and create dashboards and other visualizations to analyze and communicate the data to a broad audience. So it's 100% online, flexible schedule, so you can, set your own dates up, and it takes about 6 months to complete in 5 hours a week. And there's 5 courses that go with this. You really can't go wrong with something like this. Again, I wish they offered this stuff when I was in early 2000s. And we'll get to the last one. All right, Certified Information Systems Auditor. So this falls under information security that I mentioned earlier. So what is a Certified Information Systems Auditor? Basically, a information systems auditor focuses on auditing information technology systems. So all your front end systems, your back end systems, your endpoints, those things need to be audited to fall in line with compliance of regulatory standards um, such as HIPAA, Health Information, Privacy Protection Act. So that's what the hospitals use, to protect their patient information. Same thing for credit card agencies; they all have to fall under PCI DSS. Um, and all your retail outlets have to fall under this as well. So that's where the information system auditor comes in. Information system auditors make a considerable amount of money for what they do because it's a skill set that is in demand. My mouse just died. Interesting. All right, give me a second. All right, so let me share my screen again and get to this last one, which is not necessarily information security, but it does fall under technological security. This one is from Izaka again, CSX Cybersecurity Practitioner Certification Training. Um, Cybersecurity Practitioner Certification Training is a 5-day, 40-hour remote, self-paced, intensive cybersecurity training course focused on more complex technical cyber skills and scenarios. This course is ideal for professionals with up to 5 years experience in cybersecurity enrollment and intermediate technical skill set. So even if you don't have the background of 5 years, taking the course is actually a lot more beneficial than not. It really guides you along on what you need to know and how you can apply those skills in a real world scenario if you were offered a role. Um, Cybersecurity is a very tricky area to get into because it's more about an art form than it is just a skill set. But I think um, it's better to go at it than to not at this point. All right. So what are the salaries in networking? So if you look in the docket, you'll see that Meetup.com very critical for networking. Izaka is critical for networking. That's the website that talks about the information systems auditor. ISC squared, another certification provider in information security. Very good at the, if you look at their regional chapters, pretty good. And then you have salaries. So let's go over salaries. All right, let me. All right, so let's go. Let's go to gene editing. Let me see. Share my screen with you guys. All right, associate scientist, gene delivery technology. If we look at the salaries are starting at 54 grand a year, which is middle class, and then goes all the way up to 127K per year. So we know that this is definitely a growing market. Then it is not. Yeah, what's up? Says, please explain the art form aspect. So the art form aspect is that typically cybersecurity people have a knack for looking for things and doing things and how they operate and how they move, etc. Um, which is why it's so hard to fill those roles. And it requires a set of eyes from the outside rather than the inside to really to really ask the right questions to get the right answers. Let me share my screen again. Um, give me 1 second. All right, let me try this again. Um, all right, so data scientist with business intelligence. So looking at the salaries, and the salaries are around 100K a year. So it doesn't matter what level of the role you get into, you're definitely going to be seeing close to six figures, if not exceeding six figures. CM asks, "What's the link to cybersecurity course?" It's in the it's in the docket and description beneath the video. Yep. So those are six-figure courses or six-figure roles. What's the next one? Let's look at the full stack developer. All right, let me share my screen again. All right, this one is basically the front end coder, full stack developer. That's kind of all in one. Six figures for the roles. So $113,000 a year is on the average. So all these roles are basically pushing six figures, even with very little skill set. Um, and then we'll do information security. All right, so these roles actually pay up to $42 an hour, which is not bad for starting off. And salaries range from anywhere between 65K and 120K. That's a pretty normal pay rate, and that's coming in with no skills. So entry level security analyst, right? Entry level means very little skills. So then we'll open it up for questions in the chat. Let me see. Surprised to see a whole bunch of men in here tonight and not any women, especially for women who ask for this hangout to be held. Don't even care too much to be here. Um, let me see if there's any questions in the chat. Nope, no questions in the chat. So I'll give my closing thoughts on this, and then I'll end the hangout. So just to recap on what we discussed, for those of you who just coming along into the chat, what is the fourth industrial revolution? The fourth industrial revolution is basically the combination of physical infrastructure along with digital infrastructure and human human sciences. So fourth industrial revolution has already started. It started about 10 years ago and it's still going and will keep going for the next 80 years or so. And what are the top five roles? Top five roles is full stack developer, data scientist, bioscience, business intelligence, and information security. So, sorry, I got interrupted there for a second. On the recap, we listed all the educational resources and then salaries and networking. Brooklyn Star. Good evening to you. Bloodsport asks, can you explain more about the front end web designer? I kind of went over it already, but front end web designers are basically your full stack developers. Websites have not are no longer just basically basic websites. Your front end web developers developing web applications, so banking applications, iOS and Android applications to go with it. So front end web developer is just a term by the W3C, but in reality, the industry calls it a full stack developer. So basically, guys who people who work on the front end, also the middle tier, and they also focus on the back end, which is all the database connections as well as the infrastructure piece. So CM says Salesforce released a version of their popular CRM, which is specifically tailored to nonprofits called Salesforce Nonprofit Cloud. It's an opportunity to get into the Salesforce ecosystem. I'm not a big fan of branding of a specific company's product, so that's why I kind of don't plug that into there. But I understand. Fika asks, what can Africa do to leapfrog and catch up with the rest of the world? In many ways, they've already leapfrogged the West, if that's what you're referring to. Africa's problem is an infrastructure issue and a governance issue with oversight of the corruption that goes on within the governments itself on the continent. So once they can fix the infrastructure issue as well as the governance issue, they are actually going to leapfrog the West. And in some ways, they have already done so. If you're only comparing Africans to African Americans, they have leapfrogged them by leaps and bounds by at least 20 years or a generation. Alvino Allen asks, what's your guesstimate on when these jobs will become oversaturated with candidates, if not already, 3, 7, 20 years down the road? The problem is they can't fill the roles. I mean, if you may have been paying attention to the hangout. I read the World Economic Forum. They cannot find enough people to fill these roles. What Trump has done, the Trump administration has done, is they've prevented H-1B visas from actually becoming coming into this country. So now all of those job opportunities that would have gone to Indians and other Asians are now actually available to African Americans, and Black people don't really have the skill set in these areas because they don't enroll in these roles, in these opportunities. Brooklyn Star says, CM, I'm currently studying for my Salesforce admin exam. Wish me luck. Yeah, good luck on that. Good luck on that. I know quite a few people who are Salesforce developers. They make considerable amount of money. Wheezy asks, how do you all find time to pipe with all these live streams? Live streams are not that difficult. It will be the video editing that would be a lot more difficult. So live streams, we could just fire those up. Diaspora EL says, CM, it's funny that they propagate the theoretic demographic they want for the positions. That's why our youth is geared overzealously towards sports entertainment. That's a real, very true and interesting statement. DE Raptor says African women are leapfrogging African American women in the technical and engineering skills at the present, and it looks like the same in the future. This is very true, DE. And the reason why it's true is because, as somebody else just pointed out, there is no focus on STEM. Black women, of their total enrollment, only make up 2.5% of STEM enrollment for themselves. You know, 90 plus percent of their roles are non-STEM. Brooklyn, yeah, yeah. Alvino Allen says, oh wow, so opportunities are really on the table for us. Yeah, but if you go through the manosphere or Black YouTube, you see that Black people aren't even having these discussions. They are not having these discussions. You know, they rather talk about who slept with who. Yeah, what's up says skills void vacuum ops created by Trump. Yeah, believe it or not, Trump has put pressure on, of the outsourcing of these roles. Part of this issue is that he wants these jobs for Americans. And a lot of companies have been trying to outsource, and they can't do that anymore. So there's a role. There are jobs that are available that are not being fulfilled because they can't import all these H-1B visas, and then Black people don't have the skill sets to fulfill them. But then they want to, they'll sit on here and talk about ADOS and hashtag ADOS and all these other things, but they're not focused on the real things that are tangible. I didn't see O'Shea's hangout, so I don't even know what that hangout was about. Engineering, cannabis, are there entrepreneurial business opportunities in this arena? I don't know of any entrepreneurial skills outside of just being a contractor, if that's what you're referring to. Maybe. I'm pretty sure you can do a self-employed business contract, business to business, but I don't know of any people starting their own businesses in this realm on these specific roles. Like Brooklyn Star, you're welcome. So yeah, I mean, decided to have this hangout because people, women were asking this about a month or so ago, and I said, well, maybe we'll do one. And I came up with this, and women don't even show up. You know, you get one woman in the chat, Brooklyn Star. DE Raptor says, so many of these jobs do not need a 4-year degree. Some of the training can be accomplished in 4 to 6 months or 1 year. Yeah, yeah, that's happening, and you know, black people would rather spend 6 months on YouTube, you know, sitting in these 8-hour hangouts talking about nothing when they could be spending 5 to 10 hours a day getting one of these certificates or a nano degree for that matter, micro degrees. You know, the World Economic Forum article that I read has talked about this. Fika asks, how has Africa leapfrogged from your from your perception? I'm not sure what you're referring to, leapfrog, but if you can ask in more detail, I can probably give you a better answer. Autobahn No Limit. What do you recommend Black people do in order to break their psychological conditioning? Um, there has to be a deep impact that hits them, and the deep impact would be um, something cataclysmic. You know, a market crash like 2008 that really woke up a lot of people. That made them that forced a lot of Black people to rethink how they interface with society as well as what they do to you know, to survive. Alvina Allen says probably because it would take too much immediate work, and talking about sexual dynamic just require pontificating. Absolutely true. I agree with you. CM says I put some free training links in the chat, but YouTube or admin blocked them. I don't see them. Maybe the links might be a bit bad. Brooklyn Star, you're welcome. Full circle, they will laugh now and cry later. It's going to be a whole lot of crying very soon. I can tell you that much. Mike Rizzi, peace. Um, Otho Williams Jr. Great evening. Thanks for the information. Good ish. I heard earlier. Got to start from the beginning. Oh, CM says they were for Salesforce free training links. Um, yeah, if you post one link at a time, then maybe it might show. Because I'm not seeing it. Mm. Yeah, D DE says look at tech news from Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, Botswana. You will see that women are at the forefront in some of these countries. Some own their own companies. and you're right about that, DE, because Africans are running circles around African Americans. You know, a lot of people will say, "Oh, black first," and hashtag ADOS and all this other funny stuff, man. Like they don't realize that that's your competition right there. If a company says it's not going to be about black and white anymore, it's going to be about I'm going to hire this black person from the continent over you, and you can't scream discrimination and racism. Then who you going to blame for that? Alvino Allen asks, "What are you drinking on, Mike?" Just drinking water, man. Just drinking water. Yep, DE's right about that again. So he says many tech companies from the U.S. and EU are doing development training in Africa in hopes of getting a foothold on the continent. This is very true. Mike Rizzi says, "I love exclusivity. It keeps me paid because there is no competition. I don't know what it is that you do. So you know what it is, DE. Microsoft has to compete with open source, and open source is free. Whereas Microsoft, everybody has to pay for it. So in order for Microsoft to stay relevant, they have to start giving away their training and cultivating a lot of the third world countries because third world countries and developing countries require rely a lot on open source software to build up some of their operations. Vika says, well, he asks, what courses on Coursera can I enroll my 11-year-old brother in? I don't know. Those are mostly college level. So I think you would have to actually be 18. Yep, Udemy's actually a good source. Uh, Diaspora EL says ADOS is on point. That's the whole point. White employer clump Afram and Native African together. I have no idea what you just typed. Yep, Udemy, Udacity. Yep, you could download the app to your phone. It's actually pretty good. We got two thumbs down tonight. Anything to do with Black women, especially in their advancement on this site, on this channel for that matter, seems to get a thumbs down, even when it's something positive. I find that very strange. I find it to be very strange. Oh, we got three thumbs down now. So I don't know what's going on. Guys really hate these topics. I guess I'm not sure what's going on. You got to be very angry to thumbs down a hangout that's looking to advance Black women, and then say a hashtag ADOS, all encompassing. Make any sense? We'll go another 10 minutes, and then I'll close it out. Um, I only know of one person that actually has taken courses from Coursera, but I don't know too much about it. Scholar Chang has taken courses. He's not here right now. He's usually on the Hangout. So, solid steps to wealth. Haters are everywhere, my young brother. Thank you for all you do. I personally appreciate you. You're welcome. Yeah, I'm not sure why the women's hangouts that are there to advance them get so much attack. I mean, we did a Mother's Day hangout, and they tried to rip that thing apart. Keep it techie. What's going on? Alvino Allen says Python versus SQL, which would be best for beginners and best for future employability. They're two different things. Python is a programming language. SQL is a database. You need to know both in order to make them function. Yep, free code camp is actually really good if you can keep up with it. I always recommend EDX and Coursera and Udacity because they're accredited, right? You go to Free Code Camp if you want to refresh your skills, but you go to EDX, Udacity, and um, Coursera if you want a credible certificate next to your name. For a lot of people, employers look at that and that becomes critical for them. So, what's going on, Ghana Warrior? We got 3 thumbs down. That's crazy. Fika asks, would you come to South Africa to share knowledge with the youth? All expenses paid for. We not rich, but we're back to whatever. Yeah, I would. South Africa, Botswana, Tanzania, Mozambique. Those are all on my list of places to go. Zimbabwe. Yeah. Diaspora L. EDX, Udacity, and Coursera are all accredited. Yeah, they are all accredited. You have Duke University. All your major universities are on there. So they're very much accredited. You have to keep in mind that EDX and Coursera are just platforms um, for larger institutions to leverage. Hey, what's going on, Complex Design? Gabe, A, what's good? How are you doing, brother? Rain Woman, how are you doing? Good evening to you. Yeah, all of this stuff is in the in the docket beneath the video. You can always refer back to that. Um, Brooklyn Star asks, Mike, do you still take courses or have to gain new certs in your field? I typically do certs on my own. So I do one cert a year, if not two certs a year. But I do a lot more um, conferences now than I do certifications. So I may do 3 or 4 conferences a year. So I think conferences are more engaging than just doing certifications. Certifications is the benchmark of what you know versus what you master in versus what you know the interaction aspect of the technical the tech conferences. So tech conferences matter for FaceTime. Um, yeah, Ghana Warrior, thanks for posting that. Yeah, Salesforce training is really big. I personally just don't promote Salesforce because I'm not into the whole brand thing. They're a for-profit company. If they really cared so much about training, you know, and social justice, they would go into predominantly black neighborhoods and train those people up. I don't see them doing it. Reigning Woman says, "What haters from the manosphere or feminists came and hit the down like button?" You know, Reigning Woman, I had to restart a new Hangout because it got so many thumbs downs a week ahead before I even launched this Hangout. Um, it's just ridiculous. I don't understand people in this black YouTube space. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The Hangout was scheduled a week ahead and it hadn't even started yet, and people had already came down and gave it a thumbs down. Just like the Mother's Day Hangout, you know, people coming in and attacking it. I'm not sure what's going on. Hey, what's going on, Complex Design?
Hey, Mike, what's going on? Good evening, everyone.
I'm chilling, man. I'm chilling. Just doing this Hangout. I got through everything.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of busy here during, Saturday. I got my little one with me, so I was busy. But
Yep.
listening, I wanted to kind of chime in where I could, but yeah, I kind of got in on the tail end of it. But just to make a quick note on what you did say, yeah, it's unfortunate, man. Mike did have to reschedule it because we got a bunch of thumbs down on the Hangout. We pre-scheduled it, so it hadn't even gone on, and everybody's already disliking it, and really didn't even know what it was I was going to get talked about. So I don't know, pretty interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, it's all about the advancement of your people. Some people are pro-black only to a certain extent.
Half pro-black,
Right.
pro-black for half of the people. Yeah,
Yeah, pro-biracial or something.
yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Solid Steps to Wealth asks, what do you recommend to a sister transitioning out of the automotive industry as an automotive repair on the high-end tech side into information technology? High-end tech meaning
Hmm.
programmable vehicles. I think you should be getting into autonomous vehicles. You already have that
Yep.
background. You're already 60% there. You might as well fill the 40% with the technical know-how of autonomous vehicles. I would say get into micro transportation.
Yep. Yep. If you don't have any, if you don't have any like electrical, I don't even want to say electrical engineering, but if you don't have any like electrical experience, I would definitely maybe try to go get an electrical a certification of some kind. But you'll largely want to know how to deal with electronics, and then if you can kind of couple that with like some computer programming, or particularly of the AI and self-driving variety, like those two things together, because like Mike said, you already have 60% of it. You have a working knowledge of just an automobile. But if you take out the ICE engine, the internal combustion engine, you have to remove the componentry. Right now, we're talking about batteries, controllers, and motors, and computer systems. right? So if you can kind of bolster your skill set up with that 40% knowledge that you're going to need to acquire, which is just it just basically reflects the new platform that the car will be operating on. I mean, I wouldn't call it an easy transition, but fairly easy. So
Yeah, I
definitely,
don't see.
I was just going to say definitely some Udacity courses I think would be right up your alley.
Yeah, let me share my screen. Hmm. Autonomous vehicles refers to all of that. So I'm sharing my screen right now. If you can look at the screen, um, become a self-driving car engineer. Self-driving cars are transformational technology on the cutting edge of robotics, machine learning, and engineering. Learn the skills and techniques used by self-driving car teams at the most advanced technology companies in the world. So estimated time is 6 months, 15 hours a week. You got enrollment starting June 11th, and then the prerequisites are just Python, C++, and mathematics. You can brush up on that type of stuff. Um, let me look at the silly bus.
Did I see McLaren there?
What are you talking about?
Where it says companies that hire, yeah, right there. Look at that to the right.
Oh, McLaren Applied Technologies, not McLaren, the
Mm.
actual automotive group.
Yeah, no, I was just saying McLaren.
No,
Yeah, even yeah, McLaren's even they source talent from people that've got some technical training from Udacity. Interesting.
yeah, yeah, because the McLaren Applied Technologies, McLaren actually does, and McLaren Applied Technologies and McLaren Automotive is kind of different. So you have McLaren Applied Technology would be the IT portion of McLaren, basically.
Right, right, right.
Right, right. So, um, but yeah, all these companies, I'll look for that type of stuff. So self-driving car engineer, the introduction for the prerequisite, computer vision, deep learning, sensor fusion, localization, planning, control, system integration. So you're not really. It's only 6 months. It's not like, oh, this is a 4 year degree. This is 6 months. So that means you got to be on point. Showing up for this. I'll drop that in the chat as well.
There's some people on YouTube also. If you're kind of like a hack type of person, there's people that actually hack their cars and make them self-driving. They actually document it on YouTube. I'm not by my computer, but you can just look up self-drive like self-driving uh, like modded self-driving Honda or something like that. And there's this kid who basically he's literally a kid. He's like 18 or something. And he did like a series of like 3 or 4 videos where he just used a plus one phone, um, open pilot. It's a auto or flight simulator software. And he used, and I'm trying to remember what kind of Arduino that he used, but he used the three together and basically hacked into his Honda. And the whole rig probably cost him maybe, with the phone, maybe like $1,000. And he basically got, because the car has driver assist, right? So it has driver assist, but you can basically use the same components to just make the car drive itself. And he just hacked it with these three little components. And, over a series of tests, he got the car to start driving itself. So it's not, the stuff isn't like, it's not like far reaching. It's actually like pretty, it's relatively close to you.
Hmm. Um, Solid steps to wealth. I asked, so what do you think about the program with Udacity that focuses on autonomous vehicles? That's what we just read off. So we did drop that in the chat. And she also asked, when they first came out with autonomous vehicle course on Udacity, there were prerequisites I did not have. How do you recommend I obtain um, or knows should I go from another ankle? So here's how I approach that. Look at the prerequisites and ask yourself, um, where do I stand with this, right? Because sometimes a prerequisite can actually, it can make a person think twice about it, but you shouldn't actually do that, right? Look at the prerequisites. So they say C++. How much C++ do you really need to know, right? You can go to Free Code Camp and they can, and there's courses on there for C++. You can buy yourself. They used to sell these books called Teach Yourself C++ in 24 hours or something like that. It's basically a crash course in C++. You should be able to, if you can grasp the 24-hour books, those are actually pretty good. And don't be afraid to get a dummies book. C++ for dummies is actually really good. It's interesting. Keep it techie. Because he mentions DEF CON. We need to have our own Africon or something like that. But then again, people will try to mix it up with Africoon, knowing them.
Yeah, like a hackathon, right?
Right.
Like a little
Well,
hackathon type of thing.
well, no, an Africon that I'm thinking about is like a tech space for African Americans, ADOS, and other Black people from the diaspora that can
Hmm.
actually come to an event and actually talk to people who look just like them without actually being criticized.
Right, right. No, this is true.
What I see a lot of times at tech events is that they get they being black, get overshadowed by non-black people, and they you become the token black guy or the token black woman, so they can say that they have diversity, but we need to get away from all of that.
Yeah, I'm posting
Yeah,
the.
Gabe A says.
Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna say that Gabe A says I also look at reverse engineering job positions. Google a role that you desire on LinkedIn. Jot down skills and Google how to acquire those skills. It's great advice, Gabe. Great advice.
Now, CM says a tech conference is a good idea. We have had summits here on the Brain Trust. We've had a few. We've had cloud computing, IT, stuff like that. So we have held some kind of like some virtual conferences in some ways. Um, so we do have those. Please, feel free to dig back into the archives and check those out. Those would typically be the ones that were scheduled on a Saturday night. Those hangouts right there.
Hmm.
Mike, I think I might have to dig through the channel and like kind of break things up into playlists a little bit, like geopolitics, tech talk, all that stuff. But you'll find some of the prior tech summits on there too that we've held.
Yeah, have at it. Have at it.
Okay. Yeah. And I posted the link to the playlist for that kid that did the it's what it was the comma AI. It's a little comma AI unit. So that plus the phone plus Open Pilot to make your car self-driving.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. And another thing
Yeah.
that you may also want to get into or follow. And we're gonna have to do another automotive chat, Mike. Robo Race. That's the autonomous
Yep.
racing, the autonomous racing series, where basically it's teams of engineers, and the driving is okay. The car drives themselves, but it's the software. It's the software that is negotiating what the car sees in front of it, how to get around or by other cars, and it's basically teams of engineers on their laptops against other teams of engineers on the laptops, and the cars are just on the track doing what they do. So if you want to
They got that
see,
from Battle Bots.
yeah. I mean, that was gonna be, remember back in the day we used to watch all that, battle bots and all that kind of stuff, and that was sort of like a rudimentary form of like robotic robotic combat sports and stuff like that. You know what I mean? That was like the precursor to all this. But when everything starts to do things on its own, or just based on like one algorithm or line of code or something like that, I mean, that's where the game completely changes. And that's like the realm that we're in now. I could see McLaren AI totally into the getting involved in that whole robo race program.
Hmm. Hmm. Black Cyber Network asks, any suggestions on the best VMware to study for a CCENT? You download the latest version of VMware, the free version. You can't use ESXi unless you have a license. So the best thing to do is to download the free version of it. I believe 7.5 or 7.3 is like the latest version. Solid Steps to Wealth says on it. Thank you for the encouragement and guidance, gentlemen. This is why I love this channel. Always scholars, always gentlemen. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Absolutely welcome.
She also says you guys should come down to Miami and get some of this heat wave and share this phenomenal knowledge. That's on the list of things that's going to probably come next year. It's definitely not going to happen this year, but definitely next year it's going to be some interesting things about meetups and meet and greets and stuff like that for the Black Brain Trust. So you'll
Yep.
you'll
Yep.
you'll see something coming.
Yep.
Gabe A says there's a DoD version of that autonomous driving vehicle competition called IGVC, Intelligent Ground Vehicle Competition. Maybe that's something that
Yeah.
comes up.
I've heard of that. I want to say that's put on. Is that the one that's put on by DARPA? And they put up a prize, like a booty, they call it, like a prize for that. I want to say that because I caught some highlights from one of them, maybe like a year or two ago or something like that. And there's like this big SUV type of vehicle that I think that won. And pretty much this thing just rode around and drove as if there was a person in it. you
Mm-hmm.
know. So no, that is. I mean, it's the same as with what they do with robotics and everything else. The robotics challenges, the Department of Defense and DARPA and all that. So they do the same with the autonomous driving technology because all that stuff always sees a military. It always sees like a military use or application before it goes civilian. You know, so this is why you have the levels of autonomy, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
your current production vehicles, I think are only up at like level 3 or level 4. I don't think nothing's level 5, nothing's level 5 as of yet. And level 4, I'm not even sure if Tesla even allows the cars to operate on that level. So I think at the moment, anything that you are using right now that has the ability to drive itself is at a level 3 status.
It should be level 4, but that's
Or level 4. Yeah, it's either one, yeah, one of those. Yeah.
because level 5 means that there's no steering wheel.
There's no steering wheel or nothing, right?
Yeah. There's a DoD version. Okay, read that. Solid Steps to Wealth says is a sister by the name of Felicia Hatcher down here that I think has a space for incubators in Miami. Yeah, you're starting to see a lot more of that stuff. You're starting to see a lot more of that stuff. We have one up here too. I think it's called Mass Startups or something like that. Um, I'm in Massachusetts, by the way, so there's a lot of that happening. We're the number one city for tech startups in the country. We have more tech startups and more life sciences startups than anywhere else on the planet. Solid Steps to Wealth says the co-working space is owned by her and her husband, and it's called Tribe. Is a area of Miami called Overtown. Traditionally black community in the process of going through gentrification. Yeah, that's one of the ways you'll prevent gentrification is by setting up a
Yep.
piece of infrastructure that is rooted in the culture itself. Kind of hard to move something like that, unless some rich person comes by and buys it out and takes over it, or they send the public health inspector in there and say that you have asbestos that you don't even have.
Right. I mean, it's also a way. It's a way to stave off gentrification. At the same time, you're also developing local talent. Um, there's so much. There's so much that an institution can do for a community if it's the right institution. It can literally save. Certain institutions can literally save your communities. It can literally make your communities gentrification proof.
Yep.
We've talked about this plenty of times for anyone who's like, maybe new here, new to this channel, but we talk about all the impacts of this stuff. This is why we push all of this so hard, because all of these things tied together has a direct impact and a direct effect on us and where we'll be just in the next like 10 years.
Hmm.
We're already seeing the effects of all of the rollouts of these technologies, the trade tariffs, and all of these things that are going on. We already see the effects of it. I think just over the last few days, we've had MOT and Ghana Dan who are in the automotive industry vis-a-vis trucking, right? Talk about how all of these things are, yeah, how all of these things are affecting their business. So the look, things aren't like mutually exclusive, right? There's a connective effect to how our economy works, and as a result of our economy and what it is that we're doing on a global scale, you know all of those things are going to affect our jobs, our businesses, and all of that. I mean, hell, I can even raise my hand and say like the tariffs. This was last year. The tariffs affected our business. Cost of our materials went up. Anything that we were trying to bring in from China is all like basically automotive type stuff, and everything we wanted to bring in, the steel tariffs spiked the prices up. So it's just something as simple as that. So having maker spaces and incubators and stuff like that in our communities, man, that's key. It's far more important than an overabundance of like barbershops and hair salons and churches.
Hmm. Solid Steps Wolf says well, actually, CM says, any thoughts at all on remote working? Just like going into the office, working from home 100%. I used to work from home. I still do somewhat, but I'm not like you. I like going into the office, but remote work, any of the jobs I just listed, full stack developer, data scientist, it's, with the exception of bioscience, business intelligence, information security, those can be done remotely. I don't. My position on working from home is that it does get lonely because you're not interacting with people. You might be seeing people with webcam, but that's not the same as human interaction, human to human interaction. So once a day or twice a day, I get up and go outside just because I need to see people. Kind of it drives you kind of nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it's good for the digital nomad lifestyle. Um, it does, there's a socialization aspect to it, what Mike is speaking to, but on the flip side, being in an office environment kind of kind of opens up the world, your world for a whole other set of problems and stuff, given the current landscape. So, there's pros and cons to it. If you need a bit more lifestyle flexibility, not so much rigidity, then, working remotely is good. I've done both too. I worked remote when I was in human resources. I actually, well, it was out of necessity. I needed to be remote. It was personal things I needed to be remote for. So I would say that I liked the freedom because it was something that was needed for me at the time. But yeah, I could see both sides of it.
I'm not sure what you're referring to, CM. He says, "Why would you say that?" I don't. Oh, he's talking to Mike Rizzi. Okay. Which IT skill set would be best suited for home working 100%? Aside from software engineering, which is an obvious one that I'm pursuing. To be honest with you, an IT skill set, um, a lot of stuff is shifting to the cloud. So whatever can be done in the cloud, and whatever literacy you have in that area is going to be key. I think just being technologically savvy is more important than having all these varying skill sets. Yeah, you can hook up a router and a switch, and you can get into Linux and all the other stuff. But if that's not your job, then it doesn't really make any sense to mention those skill sets. I currently work remote, and I love it. I hated the office politics. Gabe, hey, I'm in it with you. Some places, man, suck. In terms of culture, especially legacy corporations or places that try to maintain a corporate posture. Those places are terrible. They're just flat. They lack any sort of real dynamics and diversity, and lack lots of inclusion. Just it's horrific, man. It's horrific environments. It's almost like they create drones out of their own employees and don't realize it, and can't understand why there's such high turnover.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily understand or respect like younger employees. They don't psychologically they don't really have much of a profile on them. So they just bring them in and they just say, okay, yep, this is the structure. This is how we do things. Go. And a lot of those, like you said, legacy companies, they have legacy processes and legacy methods. And I get that those processes and methods may have gotten them the amount of successes that have kept them in business for that time. But business trends change, technology trends change. A lot of you have trends that happen all the time that affect how a business can be its most effective. So so companies that are a bit hesitant to maybe adapt to new processes and things like that, they may not be for you over the long run. Yeah.
If you have not hit the like button already, please hit the like button now. We want to spend a few more minutes before we close out.
I think there was a question here. Let me see, Mike. What did it say? Um, it said, "What have you brothers built or trying to build tech-wise, and how the trade tariffs affected you, prices, etc." Um, let's see. Well, what you want to start with that one, Mike? What have you built?
I'm not sure what they're referring to.
Okay. Well, I think it's like just a general question. What have you brothers built or trying to build tech-wise?
What I'm
Um,
trying to build tech-wise, I I'm working on a blockchain startup, so that should be coming, later in the year or by early 2020. So
okay.
I've been at
I'm
several.
I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead, dude.
No, I was just going to say that I worked at several startups the last few years, and I understand the process, and I've been around millennials who are getting $1 million checks, written, through angel investors. So I've seen how it works. Most businesses fail within their first year, but I think what you're seeing with startups now, um, is starting to change the dynamics of that those previous results. So
Yeah. I currently do work for a micro transport company. I do, you know, IoT testing, and that type of stuff. Uh, then I have like my own platform with myself and a brother you'll start seeing around more and more again now that Ramadan is over. But anti-gravity. So we have a trade group and we co-own a couple companies. One of which is in, the micro transport and IoT sector. So we do the same type of cloud-based uh, uh, micro transport technologies that, like a lot of the bigger companies like Bird and all of them do. Literally the same hardware, same type of software stacks, all that type of stuff. I would say ours is a little bit better, but that's my opinion. Um, and then on the automotive side, like I'm waist deep in racing. So I race go-karts professionally, run a team. I run a team, develop drivers. And so, my plans with that is to kind of go next level with it. You always start somewhere, you get into a competitive environment, and then you always got to set goals and plateaus for yourself. So even getting into the stuff, you plan to maybe reach a certain level within it, and then move on to like say like the next phase. So if that would be like full size like single seater cars, like Formula 2, Formula 3 cars or something like that. Um, just wherever it goes. But as you can see, when we were looking at the Udacity page, and you have McLaren, a firm like McLaren that has a complete division just devoted to the technological development side of things, right? Not even the automotive cars, the design and all of that, but we're talking literally just like the software and the technology. Okay, that's a venue to ultimately aspire to get to within motorsport for myself also. I want to use what I'm doing to actually pursue opportunities with it. I think that's what makes it easy. Well, what makes it easier to take on the challenge of doing these types of things is when it's actually attached to something that you're passionate about, to something that you actually care about, because then you'll have no problem putting in the sweat equity. You'll have no problem spending long hours, either watching YouTube videos or, reading stuff, doing test code and whatever, because it's directly tied into something that you have a keen interest and a passion in. So I would posit to say too that, if you are doing this stuff from an angle that includes something that you really truly love, then it makes it a lot easier. And it also allows you to be creative about what you're doing. You'll start thinking outside of the box about what you're doing. How do I make this like my own personal, like I'm gonna write this code, but I want it to do this. All these other ones, they do this, but mine would do this because of this, right? And that's kind of what sets you apart in this realm, So yeah, that's kind of what I do too.
uh, sorry, can you hear me now? I'm building a list of free and open source security tools for the elderly. So one of the things that public libraries, at least here in Boston, the Boston Public Library has done, it has learning courses geared towards senior citizens. in the elderly. So how to use Gmail, how to use um, basic antivirus security, Microsoft Office, Excel, Chromebooks. So you take a Chromebook class as an elderly person, you get a Chromebook at the end of the class for free. So these are things that your public library, public institutions are responsible for in terms of closing that technological divide. Same thing for social media. They have Facebook classes, they have YouTube classes now for senior citizens and elderly. LinkedIn classes. That if you don't have that in your local institutions, you got to push for it, or you got to write up a program yourself and just do it yourself, and then force those institutions to adopt it. Yeah, he says. Mike Rizzi says I'm too politically incorrect for an office job. I think black men in general are just politically incorrect. It's
you're
not so much.
you're politically incorrect because you're a black man.
What happened?
I said you're just by virtue of being a black man, you're politically incorrect.
Yeah, being black with a penis is politically incorrect in this country. So,
Being black with a penis and hetero.
oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because if you're not that, apparently you're not a problem.
hmm CM says I'm tired of having to fake laugh at my coworkers' non-funny jokes in the office. Mm.
See, okay, this is where I'm a firm believer in having, and this is just me. So maybe this is something that can transfer over to you guys. Maybe this is something that actually might even relate or might strike a chord or it kind of resonates with you. But I mean, for me, jobs were always largely something where I was using it as a source to get something else going. Right. So when I took on a job, I always had in mind that there was actually something else that I was going to be funding or putting the money, putting the money to use for in terms of like a business or something like that. So, I never got quote unquote stuck in the job because I knew the job actually was being utilized for something else. I think, if we kind of just take a job, and I'm not saying don't take jobs. We need jobs. Jobs are good. But if you take the job and you're just there, right? You're just there. You just get up every day. You just go there. You just do stuff. Then yeah, you're gonna have to kind of be more of the social setting within that place, versus if you're literally there to get your shit and get out. Because when you get home, you've got the project, the real goal, the real cash cow, the real whatever. That's there. It's not where you're at. Then what happens is that you approach the job kind of like it's just part of the background, part of the setting. You just slide in, do what you need to do, slide out. You know, I never tried to get involved, or allow myself to get involved in like the office BS. I was
Oh
always
yeah.
in and out. Yeah, yeah, I was in and out, man. I blended in, man. I was just like that poster you see on the wall. That was just me. I was just some random dude, you know. But I used the jobs that I worked. There was always like a reason why I was working them, So I would always just push to actually look to be creating or building something for yourself, right? And then that way, what it does is it puts the job that you're working in the right context and in the right frame.
Yeah. Black Cyber Network asks, what certification or training do I need to make web applications scalable? So you don't need a certification to make an application scalable. What you need to make an application scalable is better code.
Right.
So the training that you would need to make an application scalable is a better understanding of front end development or full stack development for that matter. But front end development is where your web application is going to come in. So scalability is relevant to the needs of the platform that you're going to be on. If you're talking about having it scalable across multiple platforms, now you're talking about scaling out. So Android versus Windows versus iOS versus Apple, OS X or whatever it is. Um, that's a form of scalability, but that's flat scalability. If you're talking about vertical scalability, then you're talking about how much memory can it consume, how much CPU usage can it consume, how well can it map out the threads on the CPU from a scheduling standpoint, how best can it utilize it for encoding, GPU, things like that. Those are vertical scalability areas of concern. And then that requires some high level programming, not low level that you see like a JavaScript, high level at the C++ layer or the Java layer for that matter.
Hey, Mike, let me ask you a question. Maybe you can speak to this a little bit. What are your thoughts on outsourcing certain parts of development? You know, maybe to either speed up production, or say like you're bringing in someone, you're skilled in certain areas, but you're not 100% skilled in all areas, right? So then you may outsource a portion of the development for somebody who deals specifically with one type of language or coding methodology or something like that. I'm talking about like outsourcing the work too, in order to get to that production level. What are your thoughts on, brothers and sisters either applying like a portion of that or doing quite a bit of that, right, in order to develop like tech related products?
So the way you would go about that is it's a couple of ways you can go about that. Depending on how much code needs to be written, if it takes a certain amount of time, let's say it takes 2 years to do, you really can't outsource that. You really got to bring that person on as a joint partner on about that startup or about that platform, because that's a lot of code that needs to be written, and there's a lot of oversight that
Right.
needs to be concerned. So they become a major partner in that. In most companies, startups and stuff like that, always need a co-founder, always needs a contributing member. Can't bring somebody on for more than a year and expect them not to be intertwined into the work, because I've seen many times before where person came on for 1 year or 2 years, and suddenly the money for the contract has run out for outsourcing, and then the person is jaded, and they take their code back, and next thing you know, the system stops working because they sabotage the system, or they sell the
Yep.
code off to their Russian counterparts because of nationalism, or their Chinese counterparts.
Yep.
So things
But
like that happen. Yep.
go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry. Finish, dude.
No, so I was saying things like that happen, and you got to be mindful about the relationship that you're trying to build. If it's only 3 months of code, you pay them per hour. You bill it out per hour. So let's say it takes, you know 43 hours of code at, 55 bucks, $50 an hour. Well, you already know how much time it's going to take versus how much the wage is going to be, and you can kind of just play it out from there, right? So you accrue a budget. Uh, and start paying out from there. You kind of do scrums every day and kind of see where the code is, um, if you're on time, if so that there's no cost overruns. Because if there's cost overruns, then you may screw yourself out of your budget, and the project may never get finished. Um, you got something you wanted to
And
add?
I do. I wanted to ask you another question, kind of like a follow-up question to that, because you mentioned, you outsource the type of work, and let's say something happens, and the next thing you know, it's being, like you said, it's being sold to another Russian company or a Chinese company, because that's where these dudes were from. Um, is there, do we do, or maybe even, I guess the person that's in the chat, I think she's from Africa, I believe. Is there, um, is there like a platform where we can source IT talent, where we could outsource the IT talent, but let's just say in Africa, for example? Do you know of any sources currently? I think I know of one. Actually, Noah mentioned it to me. It's a platform called Hotshi, I think it is HOTSHI or something like that. And you could tap brothers and sisters in the diaspora for various. It's kind of like a LinkedIn kind of. But do you know of any other platforms?
Say that again. What's the name of
It's
the app?
it's called Hotchi. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's HOTSHI. I signed up for it, man. This is maybe like about a year and a half ago or something like that. Um, it was like, I think it was started by a brother from the diaspora, but I think he's in Amsterdam, and so he created this platform to, you know what I mean. So basically, working black professionals like all over,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, the platform sounds like it was designed by someone named Sansa Ray or something like that.
That might be
what
their name, but I'm not
I
sure.
don't, yeah, I don't know it, so I can't speak to it. But I know there's a Somali brother who's working on a Angie's List for Africa. So
Okay.
I'm not sure where he is in the process. I'll have to look at him on LinkedIn and hit him up and ask him, where he's at in the process of that. When I spoke to him a few months ago, he was at the 1/3 completed version of it. So he should be
Okay.
done by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's exactly what I
Uh,
was kind of speaking to, a platform yeah, like that.
mhm. Solid Steps to Wealth says, what is a good entry point into microtransport if I want to develop a service business that is profitable and scalable? Scalability is relevant to the amount of uh, vehicles you put on the road. The more vehicles you put on the road, the more adoption you're going to have. And what is a good entry point into microtransport? That's something that you might have to talk to Complex Design about.
She's asking what's a good entry point
Mm,
for micro transport. So on that end, I would say because the technology is so accessible, that's a good question. If you're trying to do your own thing, there's platforms that you can actually just go ahead and get. They're even able to be white labeled, and they come full on with a user app side, basically like it's like a laptop interface uh, portion, and then there's going to be like your diagnostic or mechanic app. So it's usually going to be three components that you're going to use. I'm trying to think. The one that we work with regards to developers is called Lattice, Lattis. I think the website is like lattice.io. You can check them out. Um, there's another one. Let me see if it's still on my phone, actually. There's been a few actually that we've kind of toyed around with and did some testing on and stuff like that. But that'll be one of the easiest ways. Another way is, you can look for companies that are actually operating in your area. There's a ton of them that are starting to pop up. Bird, like Hulu bikes and stuff like that. City Bike, that's another one. Those are some of the bigger name ones, but there's a whole bunch of them that are starting to pop up in municipalities all over the place. And for anyone who's mechanically inclined, who's got a working knowledge of you know computers and technology and phones and stuff like that, doing things like IoT testing, things of that sort. Those are you don't necessarily need like a degree or anything to get those type of jobs. Those are going to be jobs that just are going to require that you have some familiarity and then idea of how this stuff all works interrelated. The other part of it would be like developer or programmer. If you already have that skill set, a lot of these companies are looking for a lot of people who can write good code. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Black Cyber Network says I work for Apple now. Corporate or retail? Two different worlds.
Randy Woman makes a really good point. A lot of what we're discussing, you know, you don't necessarily, you can get involved in the investment side too. That's always, capital is always a needed resource with these types of ventures. Okay, so if you don't have the patience, the wherewithal, the technical skill set, the know-how, if you don't have any of that stuff to, sit down at a computer and learn a programming language or how to write code for a specific application and stuff, then you can always get in on the investment side of things. You can get in on the support side of things, raising capital, being an equity partner. There's many moving parts to this. So in all of what we're discussing and what we're talking about here, there is the actual tech that we need to be intimately familiar with and become practitioners of developing it. But then if you're not that person, you can also be the person who backs the person who knows it. Because you got what we also deal with. We deal with a lot of people who do have the technical skill set. They have the knowledge, they have this, but what they don't have is the backing. I've been there. I've been there with that one, and that's where I just fixed my mind to say, okay, well, look, use your own money, but I know how much faster things can get off the ground just by having some backing. And Mike, you just mentioned it, dude. You got, was it millennials getting $1 million checks cut to them,
Mhm.
right? They ain't writing those checks
Yeah,
to themselves.
no, they got angel investors backing them. I know several. Well, they're younger than me, so I call them millennials. But they, in the startup space, in the tech startup space, they are no joke. I watch them work. Wear the same clothes day in, day out. Same beat up Converse day in, day out. Write that
Ramen
code,
noodles.
get it out. Oh yeah, top ramen noodles and Red Bull. I watched how they do it, and the work ethic is much different than how African Americans are. It's a culture issue.
We sacrifice, man. We just don't sacrifice for the right things, and we don't sacrifice for things that'll give us a high payoff. We'll sacrifice greatly for like low ROI.
Mhm.
And that's never a good winning proposition right there.
My psychic said, "Get a divorce." She's always right. I just want to say thank you for the information and knowledge. I will replay tomorrow. Thanks again. You're welcome. Hmm. The Black Cyber Network says, I guess the description that I mentioned sounds like him. Yeah, it depends on how you grew up. I know it's a lot of people, a lot of black males who grew up in California have a different approach to uh, just life as opposed to a person from the South or the East Coast. Um, East Coast is really, really edgy. Down South, they're really flashy, candy paint and big wheels and stuff like that. Um, and on the West Coast, they're a lot more lax. The Converse is good enough for them. Some Levi's, and the kick push culture, push that skateboard to work, and it's different sort of mindset, different mindset.
Yeah, I used to skate to work, man. I was big on skating and shit back in the day. Um, it's just the environment. That's how it is. Like no one's the weather doesn't really cause people to like have to rush and do things. Like since the weather's good a good part of the year, there's no rush to do anything, right? Because there's a snowstorm coming or something like that. So that's part of it. The other thing too is there's this on this side, especially like in California, for example. So we've kind of nailed the whole work smarter, not harder thing, right? Because there's a lot of people in this state who make a lot of money, and they don't like do a whole lot. Like if you get what I'm saying, like what it is that they understand that like if you leverage efficiency, then you can have people with skill sets to do a large portion of the work for you. And because you have other people doing it, you're not doing it, you can do more. You can actually do more. So a lot of people do a lot of interesting things out here to make money. Some people even say that I do interesting stuff, but it's just kind of like it's really for me. It's just kind of what I've chosen to go about doing to sort of make my own life fulfilling, right? So that's really just my thing. There wasn't any sort of outside thing that told me to go racing and do what I'm doing now. It was just more or less passion. But yeah, and plus the state is big. It's very big. So Northern California has a noticeably different culture than what we do here in Southern California, and then in Central California, it's completely like hick town and farming and all that. But yeah, that's really what this all boils down to is that people make a lot of money using like low physical effort, but maybe like high mental aptitude. It's a lot of like creative type jobs. We're talking about Hollywood and people like I know like special effects guys that are, make damn near $1 million a year, but they have a highly niche skill set,
Hmm.
and so when a movie theater or when a movie studio has a movie with a 40-50 million dollar budget, you know, I would say, shoot, 10% of that, maybe a little bit more, is actually allocated to post. Specifically this one firm that does this one type of special effect or something. Because that effect will be used prominently in the film and stuff. I personally, there's one kid that I used to coach in racing. His dad was one of the sound engineers for World Series of Poker. Well, he still does it. That a television show. And I'm just saying, he worked from home. And the thing about that guy is that he was in some 80s rock band, dude, like a big major one. I can't remember the name of him. But he took that skill set, and because you're in this type of environment here, you could be a musician who then becomes like a sound engineer for a television series that I think World Series of Poker, that thing's been on for 10 plus years, maybe even more now, you know? So people kind of do their thing out here, man. They don't really stress it too much.
Yeah, I thought CM in the chat says, "Come on, guys, can we really generalize like that about our people?"
Generalize how, what, what does he mean?
I guess the description of the work ethic between blacks and
Um, we don't have to see this. you don't have to generalize when you can kind of just look at what it is that we're dealing with and what we're doing. Like you kind of, yeah, it's a generalization, but it's not as if it's without merit.
Mm-hmm.
One perfect example is to look up the amount of content consumption on YouTube, particularly, let's just say in the black sector, and let's even make it more specific, and we'll say the manosphere. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
how much time is used to consume this type of content in black YouTube versus all the stuff that, well, now YouTube is just going around and just sweeping it all up and throwing it in the trash anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant at this point. But when you compare how much time, because that's a metric, from that I can gauge who's putting what into their brain. Okay, like, so if a bunch of brothers are sitting here talking about red pill, red pill, red pill, and black women and red pill, red pill, red pill, I don't think that they're taking that and then going to a tech firm and then applying what they just learned, and you know what I mean, in a career space versus people who are more oriented towards certain industries, certain technologies, and stuff like that. That stuff, what you learn in those venues, can then be applied to your workplace setting. You see, so you're just analyzing something like content consumption. That's very benign. I get it, but it kind of speaks to the generalizations that we're making. I mean, we're over 200 podcasts deep, and I don't even think we've even actually had over 100 people checking us out at one given time. I don't even think we've even made that we've hit that plateau just yet. Okay, but you got other platforms, man. All they got to do is just let them talk shit about somebody, and dude, there's 300 people there. So those generalizations aren't without merit. Okay, and then you have to then look at where we are in the greater scope of tech professions and how much of an impact do we have there. Are our numbers at parity or somewhere in the line of competition with, say, like, the Asian community and, say, like, the Eastern European community? Because coding is big in, a lot of Eastern European countries. That's one of their resources, one of their human resources that they leverage. So now where are we in contrast to that? How many, you know, uh, IT, IT cloud and IT firms do we know of prominence? I mean, just look around. How many people on this hangout right now are subscribed to brothers like Marcus Brownlee?
Mm-hmm.
Let's bring it to YouTube. How many people right now, just hit one, if you're subscribed to Marcus Brownlee's channel? He's probably like the biggest tech YouTuber on YouTube. He's a brother.
Mm-hmm.
So when we
20 million
make these
subscribers.
general, what say that again?
20 million subscribers in.
Yeah, that's what I mean. How many of you guys are part of that 20? Not to put you on blast or put you on the spot. I'm literally illustrating why those types of generalizations are made. They're not made in like haste or anything like that. It's purely observation.
Um, Solid steps to wealth. This is definitely a cultural thing. I have two young ladies I mentor of Asian descent, and they tell me they live on 20% and save 80%. That's a big cultural shift. She also says one is 25 years old in school to become a doctor, and she's already saved $180,000 to invest, and the other one has a sushi restaurant, and she saved 300,000 to invest. They are trying to get into real. Um, CM
Like you
says,
mentioned, real estate.
you, yeah. He said, Gabe A says, I think we have the challenge to make our content more digestible to our community. How much more digestible does it need to be? We're working at layman's terms here. CM says, YouTube is not a reflection of Black society. Your generalizations are without merit.
It's a microcosm. We're not saying that it's a direct reflection or there's like a direct correlation. What we're saying is it's a microcosm.
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm saying you take from that and then you extrapolate it. Of course, there's going to be variances and what have you, but
Hmm.
I'm saying you correlate the data, right? You correlate the data across trends, and you'll start to see patterns. You'll start to see things that stand out. And I mean, I would have to kind of push back on what CM is saying because as a content creator, as part of a group or collective that creates the content that we create, we know who comes and checks us out and who doesn't. We know this. We look at our numbers. We can see it. We can see when somebody else has a hangout going on right at the same time we have ours going on. And then we see as soon as theirs goes off, how many people then shuffle on over to us to check us out, see what we're talking about. Okay, but until they shut down, right, and they come on over, yeah, everybody's over there. Now, do you think that what's being discussed is actionable information, right? Things that require you to maybe take notes, some things that might strike an idea, business idea, that last piece of information that you was looking for probably has been on a hangout that we've done. I would bet money on it, right? But is that what's of more importance? This is what I mean. Like we can't just do these non sequitur arguments like, oh well, we can't just say that. Oh, we can't. Yes, we can actually. We need to start doing it. We need to start like actually like okay, take a standard, set it, and leave it there. Don't move the bar, right? Because something may not sound comfortable to hear. I hear a bunch of uncomfortable stuff in Black YouTube all the time, right? It's still being said.
Um, CM says there are reasons why Black people in this country do not have wealth to start businesses, but you don't have to start a business. You don't. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe to the Black Brain Trust.
And that's not you per se. That's a general statement Mike's saying. There's no cost.
Right. Right. Um, Gabe A says to individuals outside of STEM fields, the content is not digestible. I find it extremely interesting, but I know that this content will not be understood by your typical inner city African American. But you have to ask yourself why.
Because it's not important. It's not important. I mean, look, okay, I'm going to say this, and this may be a bit uncomfortable, but it's a question: Are 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 we intellectually incapable of understanding it? Like, is it literally physically something with our brains that keep us from understanding these things? Because if it's not that, then it's merely just no interest. Like I can understand, like if it was literally just above your head to the point where your brain just did not have the capability to process what we're saying. Okay, you'd have a point there. But you know what? I don't believe that shit. I don't believe that. It comes down to interest. Like, are you interested in the world like that or not, or are you just interested in your hood?
Or who's getting thrown under the bus today on YouTube?
Right, right. Yeah. Who? Oh, whose channel got knocked today? Oh, whose channel? This person had this many subscribers. Okay. If that's what's important, then that's what's important. I mean, it is what it is, right? The world will keep tech. Tech is going to keep advancing, right? 5G is very real. Fourth industrial revolution is very real. All that's all real. It's happening in real time. It's going to happen. Now, whether that's of interest to you or not, that's another discussion.
Hmm.
However, these things are happening. So I mean by and I'm sorry to drone in on this, but we've got that pathology has to stop amongst Black folks. It really does. It really does. We talk about all the time how in Africa you have high brain capital there. So that means even in places that aren't as developed as the United States, that aren't as developed as your hood, right? Because even in your hood, You have you've got you have electricity, you've got sewage, running water, heat, you've got heat, you've got air conditioning. You have like first world infrastructure. Okay, in other places, you have people who don't have that, but they have the technical knowledge to do things that would suggest that they don't actually come from these places. You get what I'm saying? It's like you would think that those people would actually be people that come from the hood, and the people from the hood come from the places with no infrastructure. Like when we say these types of things, we have to really think about what we're saying, because there are literally
Well,
places, there are people in places where it's more destitute, but they have a superior knowledge base. You got to ask yourself how that happens.
well, Thought Self to Wealth says, I think we can change the culture if they can have little martial art after school programs. We can have coding after school programs. It's that simple. Just change the focus on the program. I make it just like Booker T. Washington. Booker T. had Tuskegee provocation in agriculture. We can do the same thing in the hood. Some kids may not be interested in coding, then we need to watch. We need to teach them how to do high-end Votech skills. So I always argue against this, right? When you really think about the first Black Wall Street that came about, it only came 20 years after slavery. And then you think about the first HBCUs. The first HBCUs appeared only a year and a half after slavery. So why were they able to do it back then, but you can't do it now?
I mean, that's what amazes me. It's like when you actually have more tools in this modern time, we have more tools available to us, right, to do more things, and yet we we have reasons that have nothing to do with the things that actually enable us to do them, but we have reasons why we can't, and it has nothing to do with anything that would actually allow you to do it. So that's something that I guess we're going to have to largely try to figure out, reconcile for ourselves. I mean, when you can literally go and create your own cryptocurrency right now. There's websites where you can go and create your own crypto. So look, to the point where you can create your own money. Now I know it's kind of like a heady thing for me to say. Oh, you just create your own money. Okay, technically yes, right? But my question is at what point in the past did you ever have the ability to do this? At what point in the past did you ever have the ability to put a printer in your garage or in your workspace, right, and print a three-dimensional object and then put it onto something like you print a part to fix something that broke? Okay, at what prior paradigm that we exist in did we have these things? Smartphones, Wi-Fi, payment apps, right? Things that largely circumvent, how things used to get done. Everything happens quicker, happens faster. There's technological solutions for a lot of the issues and problems that we used to see in the past that are just, you just go to your app store and download it, or you just go buy your 3D printer, or you know what I mean? So a lot of the reasons have why we couldn't do things in the past have been removed. And not to get geopolitical with it, but even with a lot of what goes on with, say, like the trade war and the tariffs and all that. I mean, look, the mere fact that you can go onto a website like an Alibaba and source material from a manufacturing facility in China and have it directly engineered to your own specific application and have it sent to you. Look, you were frozen out of the manufacturing sector back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and then on into the 90s. That was when they started to actually sell the manufacturing sector off and just offshore it over to China. But the mere fact that you have the ability to directly contact the factory there and get your product, manufactured and sent here, either, singular item, small batch, large run. We didn't have all of these things. You didn't necessarily have the ability to do these things in the past, but yet in the past, it seems as though we did more with less. But now you got the tech to pretty much put it all together. Now it's like, oh, well, black woman, it's this, it's that. We can't do it. Okay. We want to continue to buy that narrative, I guess.
All right, I think that's a good way to close this out. Thank because I didn't expect to actually go 2.5 hours. Um, Hit the like button if you have not already done so. Share the video if possible, and document description beneath the video just for you to follow along with. And that's it.
Peace out, everyone.